Hey, and welcome back to the Big Boys. It's your main man, Uncle Neely from the Pregame Show Network, joined in by Coach Carl Reed of 24/7. Coach Reed, how's it been going, brother?
Man, it's been going incredible, my brothers. Glad to be here for another day.
Absolutely blessed to be on this side of the dirt, as the old folks back in Mississippi say. It's been an exciting season, man. It has come to an end, at least the regular season, for the Colorado Buffs, as we discussed Coach Prime and what he's been up to, and going to get into some other dynamics of college football in general. But Coach Prime, 1-11 program he inherited, took that to 4-8, and now boosted that to 9-3. What are your thoughts on the success of this season?
Well, it's tremendous amount of success when you talk about the turnaround, and then we got to go back to that very first spring practice when the talent level was at an all-time low. It just the players weren't there, and then the transfer portal exodus, all the guys record-breaking numbers in the portal, record-breaking numbers receiving kids out of the portal, and at that time the criticism was at a fever pitch. You can't turn your roster over like that. That's no way to sustain a program. You can't win that way. It was the most criticized situation that you could see. And I remember talking to Coach Prime, and I'm like, Coach, you sure? He said, just trust me, baby. Just trust me. I know exactly what I'm doing. And we rode on the ride with him, man. But to see where it was, to see where it's at today, and I'm going to tell you this, I think next year's team has a chance to be even better.
Let me start with what you ended with. I absolutely concur. One of my favorite movies was Moneyball when they were trying to figure out a place at the Oakland A's to replace Giambi. And he said, you don't replace Giambi with one player, you replace him with three. And, you
Mhm.
have people leaving like a Shador Sanders and a Travis Hunter. But what you have coming in aggregate, I think is going to equal more than what you have now. So I agree with you. Next year's team is going to be better. But going back to where you started, we had those same conversations with the coach. And he said, Neely, this is how the NFL does it. Everybody's out here concerned about chemistry and camaraderie and how we're going to get a team together. Every year, NFL rosters flip and change, and they end up going to the playoffs and the Super Bowl. Just trust the process, and you see what has unfolded. He has gone from 1-11 program to 4-8 to 9-3, bowl eligible, headed to a bowl game. Before we go to that potential bowl matchup, let's look at this last game of the season. The goalpost, Coach Reed, continues to move. I remember throughout the season when Oklahoma State was scoring 40 plus points here, 30 points there, 21 points here, that they had a powerful offense with a hell of a running back, which Ali is truly that. They come to Folsom Field and get shut out, and now all of a sudden the offense ain't what people thought it was.
Man, it's going to always be that way when you're dealing with coach. Colorado was picked to finish last in the Big 12. Nobody thought they had a chance. And with every win, it changed. Well, the team's not good. The league not good. This has happened. That you just have to give credit where credit is due. Colorado came out and handled their business. Mike Gundy has been one of the winningest college football coaches in the country for decade, 10, 15 years now. I mean, he's had a prolific program. This year, they were down a little bit, but at the end of the day, all these guys were supposed to be superior coaches to Coach Prime. All these guys were supposed to be able to outcoach him, and that just never happened. So at the end, man, you have to respect what was built at Colorado. People may not like it, but they got to deal with it.
And gonna have to deal with it, for some time to come. Because as Coach Primer said, he's happy here and wants to be here, and is trying to build a national championship program, at Boulder. When you look at what he's able to do in this conference, you go back to the beginning of the season, Coach Reed. BYU, Kansas, Oklahoma State, those last three games, they were all preseason, top 20 teams. And then, when you play people, you're not necessarily playing their record, you're playing who they are when you face them. So you go to Kansas, and their record, was a little misleading because they're much better when their record was. Same thing with Oklahoma State's offense and their running game, which leads me to this question. You talk about Coach Prime rebuilding this organization and his team. I think what gets lost in that is the detail in which he rebuilt the organization, and that means coaching changes, staff changes. And with Rob Livingston, to quote unquote his words, lay the egg in Kansas and then come back and have a shutout. Talk to us about this Colorado defense and the selection of Rob Livingston, who'd never been a college coordinator before, and Coach Prime tapped him and he got the job done.
Well, I'm when he was going a couple of things. Number one, from the roster management standpoint, the way he built the program, he it's not madness. He has a detailed outlook on how he wants to build his roster from the numbers at every position to exactly what he's looking for. I won't share his strategy on the internet because that's private and keep it in house. But he does have a detailed strategy for it. The second thing, as he was going through the defensive coordinator hire and a lot of guys were interviewed, he always had said to me that Rob Livingston came in and was the most prepared during the interview process. He was very detailed. He had videos of what he was going to do defensively. He had videos of the drills that everybody was going to have at each position. He knew what every single aspect of the defense was supposed to do, and he was the most prepared for that moment coming from the National Football League. Also, you have to also remember another key hire that Coach Prime made that people didn't understand at the time is when he bought Coach Dancy from Mississippi Valley State. He brought him on as an analyst last year. This year, he got promoted to being on the field. A legendary defensive coach. Coach Dancy is one of the top coaches in the country. The additions of Damian Lewis and Warren Sapp to the defensive line. The job that Coach Hart, who's been with him forever, has done with the inside linebackers. And we also know the job that Mathis does with corners. And then you got incredible analysts on the defensive side. Gabe Lynn has been very detailed in his help with the secondary from the analyst side. So you got a bunch of guys on the defensive side who mesh together well under Coach Livingston's leadership. And that has caused them to have a heck of a defensive performance this season.
Yeah, I love that and love that. Most times when you hire a coordinator brings in his pieces that what he wants in the room. Coach Livingston inherited the defensive staff that Coach Prime put together, and he says, "Hey, this is my staff. This is his staff." And there's been no politics, no personalities. That group has meshed together like they've been together for years. Want to stay on the side of the defensive ball because as we drop this episode of the Big Boys on this Tuesday, it is the eve of early National Signing Day. And I want to talk about the defensive impact, but because this time last year, Coach Reed, as you know, we didn't have a D line coach, we didn't have a defense coordinator, and you bring in Lewis for D line. Sapp was still a rumor this time last year, but you bring
Mhm.
in Sapp and elevate Dance and bring in Livingston, and now people have gotten to see how that NFL experience and mechanics work. What impact do you think this revamped defense and staff will have on recruiting, whether it is coming out of high school or next week's portal opening?
Well, if you're looking right now at the defense of Colorado and the guys that are coaching them and the NFL ties they have, guys that played in the league, guys that coached in the league, you got to be looking at it as an opportunity for you to play defense in the National Football League.
Mm,
We talk a lot about Travis Hunter, but the other corner, McKinney, has been just as elite, and he'll be a guy that's going to trend in the first round for the draft in the 26th draft. So you can go to Colorado right now and be developed as an NFL player by guys who played and coached in the NFL. So from that standpoint, if you're a recruit, whether you're a high school guy, whether you're a transfer portal guy, you have to be looking at Colorado right now as a destination piece for you.
absolutely, absolutely. Looking again at this signing day in the portal, one of the things I believe in, Coach Reed, just as an American, you got the right to make your own choices, even if it's the wrong choice. Like that is personal responsibility, personal choice is big for me. Having said that, that also means that you need to have the faculties and the information to make wise decisions. And sometimes when this portal opens, it appears that you have a cadre of young folks out there who haven't necessarily done the homework and don't necessarily have a plan. They're just jumping in the portal because that's the splash and that's the thing to do. Talk to us about the ripple effect of the portal, the pros and cons of it, particularly when young people don't have a plan and are just getting in the portal to seemingly get in and they get stuck.
Well, most people are guided by emotions. I mean, that's human nature. That's for grown folks and old folks. So the transfer portal for a lot of people becomes an emotional affair. They want more playing time. Some
Mm,
people want more money. Whatever it is you desire, you got to be careful about using your emotions to jump in and get it because business doesn't care about your emotions. I was talking to a player and his family last night that are going to probably get in the portal. They want $1 million, right? Well, they don't have $1 million worth of value.
Mm.
right? So when you think about that, what you think you are versus what everybody else thinks you are, that can become a very tricky thing. And this business, man, is unforgiving. Football doesn't love anybody. They've been footballing before we got here, and they're gonna be playing football nearly after we long gone. So you just have to respect the process and respect the game. And you have to know who your value is, and you should get some advice from some people who really know what's going on, some professionals.
Absolutely, man. Knowing the market, I don't care what your product or your industry is, knowing the market and what the real value of what you bring to the table. You never want to underestimate or water your talents down and that kind of thing. Look at yourself negatively, but you also have to be realistic. What is the going rate for what it is I'm selling? What is the going rate for what I bring to the table with my experiences? And sometimes people, of lack of a better word, just delusional in that and are overthinking it, what their value is, particularly when it relates, to competition. I tell folks back home coming out of high school, for instance, that there used to be a time, Coach Reed, when you would get an offer as a junior or senior in high school, and you could just sit on it all the way until a deadline came up. Well, now
Mhm.
with the portal, the number three running back out of high school may not be the number three running back available when the portal opens because so many experienced people are now ahead of you. Even the time in which you accept a scholarship, can be crucial to families now.
Man, and you got to know how to handle it, and everybody doesn't know how to handle it. A lot of people are still functioning, from the old way in their mind, and not even understanding what an offer is. Number one, when you got offered, is it a committable offer?
Mm.
Is the school saying you can come, or is it an offer for you to go to camp, improve yourself? There's so many variables that can happen for the kids, and them and their families have to be educated so they can make a sound decision. A guy can offer you, and then he goes to three more high schools and offers those guys, and one of those guys decides to commit, and now your offer expired. It ain't even been a whole day, haven't even went by yet. So there's a lot of things that can happen in the recruiting process that can change things for you, and it's so competitive. The coaches have to win. We've seen coaches this year in this cycle already being fired, and they haven't been on the job for 2 years, so they're not in a position to play with you. So they got to take care of business, man, and you really got to know what's going on. You can't treat this like a fan or like you some star. You have to handle your business, and you have to be in tune to what's going on from a business standpoint in recruiting.
Well, damn said. It's the big boys coming to you from the pregame show network with your man Uncle Neely, and of course my right hand man, Coach Carl Reed from 24/7 Sports. Coach, as we sit here and have this conversation, we're about 5 or 6 days away from knowing for a fact which bowl game Colorado will be traveling to. For the fans out there, one thing we have to point out is although Colorado moved to the Big 12 for the next 2 years, this year, 2024 and 2025, you're still obligated to the Pac 12 Bowl tie ins, not the Big 12 tie ins. So that opens up the Alamo Bowl, the Las Vegas Bowl, the bowl out in San Diego. I think it's one also in El Paso, Texas, the Sun Bowl. When you look at this landscape of the bowl tie-ins and what the matchups are, where do you see Colorado going, and or where would you want them to go?
Well, right now I see the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio is the most likely thing. I would love for it to be San Diego because man, it's getting cold outside, and I would just love to be in San Diego for a week, maybe. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
from that standpoint, I'm hoping that they go somewhere warm. Las Vegas, you can never go wrong with Vegas. But from a standpoint, I think that they have been awarded the opportunity, man, to go somewhere. But I would say, based on what I've heard and what I think. I could be wrong, but I do think the Alamo Bowl is going to be the first call that comes to him.
Well, if you're wrong, I'm gonna be wrong right there with you. I think the way the language is for this particular year, the Alamo Bowl has indeed the first right of refusal. They pick which team they want, from the conference. And I don't know how anybody is a chairman or a board member of a bowl selection, and you don't want to bring Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffs to your city and what that means economically, what that means on TV, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't see the Alamo Bowl overlooking Colorado. But let me just pretend for a second that they did. One of the things I would love to see, because there's nothing like a measuring stick. There's nothing like, Shador and Travis going out with a big bang. I would love to see one of those bowls where you're matched up with an SEC opponent or ACC opponent. So you could have a Colorado versus, Ole Miss, or Colorado versus Clemson. Who knows? But those kind of things, I get going to look at those matchups. But I think you're right, Coach Carl Reed. I think it's going to be the Alamo Bowl and probably Colorado versus BYU. Because even though we're from the same conference, technically we did not play them this year.
Right.
And so that matchup could be on the table.
Absolutely, man. So it looks like we'll be on the Riverwalk down in San Antonio.
Yeah. Charles Barkley always got a lot to say about San Antonio, but I'm going to leave that to him.
I'm gonna leave that
Uh,
to him. I ain't gonna repeat what he said.
I had loved my trips to San Antonio. No problem with that city at all. CFP landscape, man. Rivalry weekend was huge. You had some guys in the conference championship games that were lost their chance to go to their conference championship game. So we'll see, how the poll shakes out and what happens on this final selection going in. But landscape wise, man, it looks kind of wide open and even looks advantageous that you might want to be the 5 seed and not the number 1 seed because the bye week might not be what it's worth when you look at the matchups out there.
Well, the playoffs can always get tricky. The thing that makes them interesting is about styles make fights. I
Mm-hmm.
think Texas is a heavy favorite, but they're not a great matchup when they play Georgia. That's not a great matchup for them. So you can be in the game and the matchups matter. Running the ball versus playing a passing team, a defense that's heavy in the middle versus a team that's got great secondary players, a team that is going to be in a two back 12 or 21 personnel, two back, two tight end set versus teams that are going to play 10 personnel and 11 personnel with 3 and 4 or 5 wide receivers. So there's a lot of things that matter when you come in the individual matchups. But the bottom line is whether you play a team early or whether you play them in the championship, if you want to win it all, you have to beat whoever in front of you that week.
This is that time of year where coaches are on the hot seat. Things are changing quickly. What changes do you see out there in that college landscape that make things a little different come January?
Well, I'm going to tell you what, when you talk about coaches being on the hot seat, you can't stack talent anymore. There was a day where if you were tremendous recruiters, that you could have so much talent, it becomes incredibly tough to beat you because not only did you have a lot of talent, you were often playing teams that didn't have the talent that you have. Now with transfer portal, and the NIL in place, the rosters are more evenly matched. So guess what? Guys have to really be able to coach now. They have to be able to coach situational football. They have to be able to coach in all three phases. And you're finding guys are being exposed because their football acumen is low when it comes to schematic and X and O presentation and preparation. And so guys are really struggling coaching. And as these jobs are being filled, athletic directors and administrators are being forced to look at we can't continue to have old solutions to new problems. We have new problems now. So now it's time to figure out who are the next generation of coaches that can help us with the new problems that we have because this is not your grandfather's football programs.
Absolutely. And we still sit around and watch and see what opportunities, frankly, will open up for African American coaches. When you look at what is happening in Colorado, what's happening at Michigan, what's happening at Syracuse, clearly, once again, it's been proven that there are brothers who can coach at a high level. And if some of those jobs open up, it's going to be one of those things when you talk about that new wave of coaching, how many ADs and regents, et cetera, are going to be open to giving a brother a shot.
Man, it's got to always take somebody who has some foresight. It's going to always be somebody who is able to see the big picture. Not everybody's like Rick George. Rick George is a guy that saw the big picture and was able to look at what was coming down the road. You have to be a visionary in a lot of situations, and everybody isn't a visionary.
Well, damn said. One thing I've seen Coach Prime do, even back at Jackson State, where he thought things could have been dominant, it wasn't good enough just to win, was have a winning season and still make changes. So who knows what changes will happen within Colorado's walls as well. And the other thing that happens too, man, when you build a damn good program, there are other programs that want your coaches. And so a sign of success is when, someone wants somebody you hire. So we'll see what changes, are in store for Colorado. It leads me to this, Coach. You have been around Coach Prime for years. You know him well. You know how he navigates Even having said that, when you look back at this 2024 season 9-3 record, what did you learn about Colorado football that you didn't know before the season started?
Well, I learned that culture makes a big difference. Last year, there was some close games that the kids kind of quit on. And he was not as worried about the ability as he was worried about getting the right kind of guys. And you never really know whether you have them or not until you go to some adversity. After the Nebraska game, when we played very poorly and things were kind of looking down and there was a lot of criticism to go around, the kids rallied together. So that let me know that he had the right kind of people, not just from the players, but the coaches in the building. And he stressed that more than anything going into the offseason. He didn't just want talented guys as coaches, talented players. He wanted the people with the right mental makeup, and he identified with that. And they showed through adversity that they had that.
Love that. I agree that after that Nebraska loss there in Lincoln, what happened last year during losses, there were a lot of finger pointings at other rooms and other coaches. This year's loss, people pointed at themselves and they really rallied down and doubled down. And I think it was a changing point in the season that that loss actually propelled you to multiple victories to come. Hey, it is the big boys with your main man, Uncle Neely. We got Coach Carl Reed from 24/7. Coach, let me tell you, I'm rocking my J hat. Jackson State is my alma mater. Coach Prime, coach of Jackson State, brought a lot of players from Jack State there, and their first branch off of his coaching tree, if you will, to become a head coach. Coach T.C. Taylor has the Jackson State Tigers in the SWAC championship, and he also just got SWAC Coach of the Year. What is it about staffs and succession that can really make a difference in keeping things dynamic and continuing in college football versus when you lose a coach and the program just crumbles apart?
Well, when you're winning at a program, you always want to promote from within. So it always makes sense because the culture has already been established. And we had to give Coach TC Taylor a tremendous amount of credit because when he took over, some key pieces obviously did leave. They went to Colorado, they transferred to some other schools, and he was able to still hold on to that foundation and weather the storm. Jackson State is doing an incredible job this season. TC Taylor was definitely the right guy to lead that program. I'm incredibly happy for him and proud of him and what he's done at Jackson State.
Absolutely. Hey, this has been another episode of the Big Boys. Checking in on the pregame show network. Coach Carl Reed, 24/7 Sports, and your right hand man, main man, Uncle Neely, as I like to say, your favorite auntie's favorite uncle. Coach, we're going to get out of here, man, but we're going to be back next week after this championship weekend, discuss college football, discuss Colorado. We'll know for a fact what bowl game we're going to, so we're going to even drill down a little deeper into that matchup. Take us out of here, Coach Reed.
Hey, listen, great season, Neely. 9-3. Nobody expected it. Everybody was critical of Colorado. Coach Prime turned it around. National signing day tomorrow in the transfer portal. It's about to be some major new additions to the program. A lot for the fan base to be excited about.
You heard it from the man himself, Coach Carl Reed. We appreciate you, brother. We'll see you next time.